Focus on what you can control. The single most important practice in Stoic philosophy is differentiating between what we can change and what we can't, what we have influence over and what we do not. We all spend too much time and energy worrying about things outside of our control. And how much time is too much time? Well, anything more than zero, the Stoics would say. Why? Because trying to influence things outside of your control is a futile effort that comes at the expense of taking action on the things you can influence. Furthermore, just fretting about such things causes unnecessary distress. Here Stoicism aligns with Buddhism, which teaches that suffering equals pain x resistance. Acceptance of the things you cannot change is the only logical choice. A flight is delayed because of weather. No amount of yelling at an airline representative will end a storm. No amount of wishing will make you taller or shorter or born in a different country. No matter how hard you try, you can't make someone like you. So learn to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot control. Wherever you are responsible, that's where you should focus your energy. In short, this means working on yourself, your own mind and your own behaviors, rather than criticizing what others are doing. We'd all be better off, both materially and emotionally, if we spent our time working to improve the things we can influence, and that leads us to the next idea.
Action. When you imagine a Stoic person, in the conventional sense of the word, you might imagine someone sitting indifferently, statuesque, unmoved to action. This is not a Stoic. The Stoics emphasize taking action. This follows directly from the first principle. Having distinguished between what you can and cannot influence, you pour all your energy into the things you can. You refuse to be a passive victim of your circumstances. You work hard to make your life better, to make the world better. You are proactive. Even if you're going through hell, you keep going. But action is not to be taken willy-nilly. It must be action with a purpose, driven by carefully chosen goals and values. In other words, a Stoic strives to take virtuous action. And that means it's time to talk about the next principle.
Be virtuous. A good character is the only guarantee of everlasting, carefree happiness. Seneca 5 for Stoics, virtue is far more important than pleasure. A good life is a life of virtue. In other words, the path to true happiness is not the selfish pursuit of pleasure, but a values-driven life of integrity, ethical behavior, and service. Here's how Professor Ward Fontsworth puts it in The Practicing Stoic. Stoics regard virtue as sufficient to produce happiness on all occasions, and also as necessary for it. The happiness centrally valued by the Stoic is eudaimonia, or well-being, the good life rather than the good mood. But the Stoic believes that virtue gives rise to joy and to peace of mind as well. Virtue produces these good consequences as side effects. The primary mission of the Stoics, in other words, is to be helpful to others and serve the greater good. And they don't do this to make themselves happy. They do it because it is the right and natural way to live, but doing it in that spirit, as it turns out, makes them happy. 6 okay, so living with virtue is good. But what virtues, exactly? According to De La Stoic, the four that matter most are courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. Courage, meaning bravery, does not simply mean the sort of bravery one might display in battle or as a firefighter. It means being willing to face difficult and painful things head-on. That could be an uncomfortable conversation, the loss of a job, or the death of a loved one. Temperance, meaning moderation, does not merely mean avoiding alcohol and other drugs, though drunkenness is certainly not virtuous in the eyes of a Stoic. Temperance here means avoiding excess of all sorts: food, luxury, leisure. One can even exercise too much, meditate too much, read too much, work too much, or be brave to the point of foolishness. All these excesses demand moderation. Justice means doing what is right, even if it is inconvenient, difficult, or costly. In the Daily Stoic, Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman make the point that this is not all or nothing, essentially saying that everything counts. Try to do the right thing when the situation calls for it. Treat other people the way you would hope to be treated. And understand that every small choice and tiny matter is an opportunity to practice these larger principles. 3. Okay, but how are you supposed to know what is right? The answer is wisdom. 1. Wisdom here means truth and understanding. A Stoic should seek to know what is true, learn continuously, and keep an open mind. However, the goal is not to acquire knowledge randomly, but to doggedly pursue the most important facts, those most relevant to living a good life, because that will lead to insights into the true nature of things. Marcus Aurelius was making the argument for consuming daily wisdom nearly 2,000 years ago. Your mind will be like its habitual thoughts, for the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius 7, however, living with virtue does not mean becoming judgmental and self-righteous. Instead, your task is to
The ego wants instant recognition. Overcome this by patiently and persistently doing the work that matters most to you without any effort to attain recognition. Doing so communicates to your ego that its desires are unimportant. Each time it hears that message, it loses power. Thus, one mechanical solution to excessive ego is diligently working in obscurity. If you eventually attain prominence or receive accolades, fine, but you're going to do the work regardless. Diminish your ego. Now, the Stoics operated nearly 2,000 years before the advent of psychotherapy, so they're not referring to the ego in the Freudian sense. Rather, as Ryan Holiday defines it, an ego is the enemy. Ego here means an unhealthy belief in your own importance. It's that petulant child inside every person, the one that chooses getting his or her way over anything else. The need to be better than, more than, recognized for, far past any reasonable utility. It's the sense of superiority and certainty that exceeds the bounds of confidence and talent. Ego is not reality-based confidence, aka self-efficacy. It's a distorted view of your own abilities and significance. It leads to arrogance, stubbornness, and recklessness. In this way, ego is the enemy of what you want and of what you have, of mastering your craft, of real creative insight, of working well with others, of building loyalty and support, of longevity, of repeating and retaining your success. It repulses advantages and opportunities. It's a magnet for enemies and errors. So yeah, ego is bad, but how do you diminish it? I think the best strategy is the do the opposite principle I've mentioned in the context of overcoming unhelpful thoughts and emotions. Feeling lazy? Do some work. Thinking your partner owes you something? Be generous to them. Consider what your ego wants, and do the opposite of that. Don't feed it. Starve it. Since your ego is worried about being better than other people, don't focus on what other people are doing. Focus on your own work. Don't constantly post about your life on social media in order to show off, and don't scroll through news feeds in order to compare your life to the lives of others. Just live your life for your goals by your values. In other words, cultivate independent self-esteem.